So packing the boat is all about sorting and iterating the stuff that you're taking with you, right? How long should that take? Funny you should ask. Hi, I'm Nico Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm talking about the iterations of sorting things that you're taking or not taking on the boat. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Lunatec, makers of the hydration spray bottle, odor-free dishcloth, and self-cleaning washcloth. Lunatec offers practical gear designed to save water and reduce waste. A water bottle that doubles as a garden hose, a dishcloth that doesn't get stinky. Yes, please. Visit lunatecgear.com to learn more. Use code BOATGALLEY to save 10% on everything. Lunatec, innovative gear for your outdoor adventures. And cruising definitely qualifies as one of those outdoor adventures, and for the record, the Lunatec gear definitely makes the cut to come on board. But we are deep in the throes of going through all the things. Again, for the umpteenth time. So here's what we do. Here's our process. We take everything out of somewhere. Maybe the car, maybe the house, maybe the attic, maybe our friend's garage where we dumped the detritus the last time we did this. We start methodically assigning spots for the piles. Calypso, Mischief, Vermont, garbage. The first few boxes go fairly smoothly because there are boxes in those piles. The decisions are pretty simple. Then there's a fifth pile that gets started, which is the to be sorted pile, which mostly in our life consists of fasteners. We start to take more time making decisions, maybe taking a little bit longer before we put anything into the garbage pile. The Vermont pile, it gets bigger. And then one of us decides that we need to go look. Are we sure that we put that in the right pile? And we go look to see, and maybe instead of it going on Mischief, it goes into Calypso, or instead of it going into the garbage, it goes to Vermont. And night approaches, and we bundle all those piles, each in their own sort of spot, into some safe spot to protect the contents from dew or animals or something else. And in the morning, the process begins again. We're not technically starting from scratch because the piles have already sort of been sorted, but was that pile the one for Vermont or was that the one for Mischief? And did we really mean to throw out that fastener? And what started yesterday as a leisurely exercise becomes a little bit more frantic and squirrel-like as decisions get harder. We start second-guessing ourselves. Do we actually have a set of taps on Calypso? Or do we need to take actually everything out of the tool locker at the boat to double check? The garbage pile waxes and wanes. Is it time to take the collection of stuff that's supposed to go to Calypso down to the boat? Oh, maybe we need to start more piles on the dock. Those same piles. And before we know it, day 2 is coming to a close. Throw everything back under cover or into the garage or back into the van and say, okay, well, tomorrow, we can finish it tomorrow. And day 3 starts. The piles are everywhere. Oh, that's where the sanding drum kit went. How come it went into the box with the wetsuits? And now we start to second guess every decision that we've made over the past 3 days. And now that we've found that drum kit, it's actually time to finish reinstalling the chain downpipe in the forepeak so that that can be waterproof, which means we need to fully empty the forepeak, so here come piles onto the dock. Because even though every single thing in the forepeak has already been designated as must go on Calypso in some previous version of this exercise, yet again, we're starting to rethink. Like all the rolls of scraps of vinyl that Jeremy used to make the Dodger and the enclosure. Initially, it was definitely have to take it, and now, nope, it's all going up to Vermont. Meanwhile, in this whole exercise, we've discovered a couple of plastic organizing bins that I'm sure will fit perfectly in the galley pantry because I've now moved the bread maker to be stored up front so that I have more space in the pantry. So while Jeremy is wrestling in the forepeak, I'm busy taking every single thing out of the pantry locker and Tetris placing bins. I've just gotten everything back to my satisfaction when I realized I've only got 1 spare pound of coffee in the daily use locker. And all my extra stuff is deep underneath all that stuff in the pantry. I don't really want to dive in there when we're on passage, so it all comes out again so I can access the deep storage so I can put 3 more pounds of coffee in the daily use area. Jeremy finishes up the chain pipe. It's time to drag the Calypso pile down to the dock. Time to stash everything away. We start deep storage in the forepeak, documenting things as we debate how soon we'll need whatever we're going to need. And then there's always the question of, can it get wet? Because things like bottom paint that we won't need until January can't go deep in a locker that may get some saltwater splashes, because it would not be any fun to spend all that money on bottom paint only to find that it was a rusty can of mess when we needed it. So what feels like it should be a fast process drags out as we try to be extremely intentional about what gets stowed where. Oh, look, there's more to go through. And look, it's getting dark. And look, once again, it's time to throw everything under cover or back in the garage or back in the van. And at some point in this exercise, each and every time, and yeah, we're on about like year 4 of doing this. Every time we hit a wall and we wind up just tossing everything into the to be decided pile. There's definitely a drawback to having a place that you can just stash things to be decided on later. It just winds up punting the decision down the line. This time, this trip feels different because we're not planning to come back with Calypso. Making sure that we have what we need on that boat feels much more important than normal. We got to balance the space with the essentials, and this involves some daunting series of questions that can feel incredibly paralyzing. But we don't have any time for paralysis. We've got to plow through this. So here's our hot tip. If you're planning on moving onto a boat to go cruising, start that sorting process early and plan on doing it unbelievably often. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you somewhere where we're maybe not iterating our storage, or maybe we are because we're in a place that we can share with other people the stuff that we no longer think is essential. But in any case, we'll get to toast to our incredible good fortune at being able to live this lifestyle, even though sometimes it seems to take a long time to get there. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. It was such fun to meet people who stopped by the booth at the Annapolis Boat Show. It really was a lovely thing to meet so many people. The Boat Galley is all about making boat life better. And we certainly hope we've helped you do that today. Have the most spectacular week.